Everybody who's not here, raise your hand. Okay, well, I think we're gonna get started. Happy New Year, in case it's already New Year where you're at or in your house, if you already started your party. Or we probably won't see most of you between now and then, but anyway, Happy New Year. That's the subject of our discussion today is New Year's, and most specifically New Year's resolutions. And New Year's resolutions are quite interesting. You know, they've been around for about 4,000 years, according to my notes and calculations, starting with the Babylonians. And apparently the Babylonians started making resolutions as part of, their planting season to promise the gods different things. So like, hey, you help me out, I help you out, we'll help each other. And I don't know why the gods needed their help, but hey, they would make those promises. And so that went on for a while. And then little by little, other people started getting the same idea, even after they changed the calendars. New Year's used to start around March for a lot of people. I suppose around the world, people have different days that they started. It's arbitrary, really, wherever you started, whatever day you started on, or at least it seems to be arbitrary to me. You could find a reason to start a new year anytime you like, really. And that's kind of my solutions for New Year's resolutions. If you break them, then just start a new year, and then make it again. And it's okay, now let's start over. Because it seems like for most people, apparently about 45% of Americans anyway, make New Year's resolutions. And by mid-February, only about 8% of them are still keeping their New Year's resolution. So as popular as they are on January 1st, by March 15th, they're considerably less popular, And I'm gonna put some references in the chat, and if you don't know how to download them, if you down at the bottom, there's a little thing that says chat has a bubble in it, and I'm going to put two links to it, because when I tell people to go look at something on the internet, I'm not one of those kind of people who say, oh, Google it, because I actually do research and I know it's not that simple just to say Google it. So I'm going to put the links for you in that in the chat. I'll do that now so I won't forget. And those are two important links. One, well, for this conversation anyway. One is, what's the history of New Year's resolutions and how they work and all of that. And then the other one is why New Year's resolution fails. I mean, there are other articles, but these are relatively short and at least give you some context. So I thought I would share that with you. And from there, you can put in the same, if you're going to Google it, you can grab those titles, put them in the search bar in whatever search engine you use, and something else will come up. Now, is it complete? Probably not, but it'll be more than you had if you're searching for it. So we'll go with that. At any rate, that's pretty much how the history of New Year's resolution, starting with the Babylonians about 4,000 years ago, and you'll find more details in that article. But I want to get to how New Year's resolutions interact with your lives. And I guess my first question to you is just not which one you made, but have you ever made a New Year's resolution? If you have, maybe you can even just signal in the you know, either in a chat or they have those little what do they call them? The little buttons that let you respond to things. What do they call those? Reactions down at the bottom where you see the share screen, that green thing and everything. Over to the right, you should see something that says reaction. You click on that, and then they give you a choice of reaction. So now I'm going to do a thumbs up, and then you can do that. So if you've made if you've made a New Year's resolution, like click on that, so we'll see who has made a resolution in the past. Okay, so only 2 people. So this maybe it's not that big of a popular thing to do. Well, I certainly have made a New Year's resolution. I think Kathy said she had too, but then those reactions kind of go away. But it is a popular thing to do, and I think, Leslie, there's maybe 4 of us, so we're kind of getting close to the average of people who make New Year's resolution. Oh, now we're over the average because Donna said she made one too, and Stacy. So we're cooking here. We're real resolution freaks, or resolution sensitive. we're really into it. Okay, so now the next question is, have you found difficulty in or let's say, how did that New Year's resolution go for you? Like in general, I mean, probably if you've made one, you probably made more than one. And so I think the next question out there is, over time, what has been your experience with New Year's resolutions? Anybody, just if you can, just chime in whenever you think you have something to say.
I
Betty?
stopped making them. I don't remember why nor when, but a long time ago. It just didn't do anything for me. I don't like to have that kind of pressure on myself.
Yeah, for me, it's been kind of weird because I noticed that people make them, but they never really work. So I'm like, what's the point? Like, I was that way as a kid. And I don't do like direct resolutions, like never did, for this reason, because I've never seen it work. But what I do every year, what I'm kind of guilty of, is going like, hey, I hope this will be my final year. I hope this year I will get the opportunity to have my ending. This has been the last 4 years or thereabouts, because there has been always something getting in the way. And I'm not sure whether this is a form of resolution or just, I don't know what, but it kind of feels like it, because it always fails for some reason. Well, I mean, the last couple of instances, the reason was the entire world going crazy, but at least
Okay, great.
that.
I want to get back to Betty, because Betty, I don't think she was finished when you started, so she was still talking. So Betty, what's been your interaction with or experience with New Year's resolutions?
Well, I just gave them up. It wasn't something I really felt was going to do me any good. I try to revisit my purpose in life every so often. I don't know, maybe it's a function of elderliness, but I just don't make New Year's resolutions anymore.
Okay, LR, I don't know which one. Oh, Lee. I was figuring, who's LR? Oh, Lee. Lee, can you tell us about your experience with New Year's resolutions? Have they worked for you, or what happens when you make one?
Yes, I've only made one in my lifetime and I followed it.
Oh, great.
I decided one year to learn Spanish and that was what I was doing when I was late coming on. I do Spanish every day and I'm on my 904th day in a row right now.
Holy moly.
So
That-
when I try to do it, I kind of go in whole hog.
There you go. That's
Okay.
the only hog, that's the only kind of hog to have.
And I found it very beneficial. I enjoy it. Have a daughter that went to Costa Rica and I've used it because she's learning it. And it's just, I never had a chance to learn a language in the old school, you know, few kids, they didn't provide any languages. And I just decided maybe I'm not too old to learn.
Excellent. Excellent. That is a very good use of a New Year's resolution, is to actually do something tangible to improve oneself. And then you can stick to it. I mean, it's not abstract, because that's one of the reasons that people's resolutions fail, is because they don't have a clear goal, or what the resolution that they have is not really clear to them. And so it becomes kind of like a leaking ship, you know, or a rusting ship. It rusts to a point, and then there's a hole, and then it's sunk, you know, by February 15th, a day to remember. Anybody else have an experience with New Year's resolutions?
Yeah, you know, I didn't do them, as Betty had said, I didn't do them really a lot when I was younger, or when I did, they ended pretty, you know, summarily, or just kind of like, but now as I've gotten older, I've actually kind of employed it as a technique to just kind of focus on something that I probably know I need to get done, or should, and then kind of layer it sort of. So, you know, a couple of years ago, it was weight loss after I'd had to have surgery for like, what do they call it? Like stones. And I was like, oh, I'm never doing that again. So what I did was I knew, you know, I set a mark, right? And then that was one thing, but then, so I layered it with something that would probably be more achievable as a secondary thing. So I cut out red meat from my diet, and that was very achievable. And then the goal became, you know, my other goal was a lot easier. And then this last year was about, you know, getting published. And so I made a point of, you know, that was a bigger goal. And the lower goal was to just, you know, have more output, sort of write a lot more. And so, yeah, by doing that, the lower one kind of has helped me focus on the bigger one, you know, something I can control more on a daily basis versus something I kind of want to do, right? Then I have something below it that I can kind of keep at it. So if I do fail now, at least one of them, hopefully, the lower one, I'll be able to kind of at least say, well, at least I did that.
Yeah. Well, that's a really important perspective, Todd, because I think one of the ways to keep resolutions, whether they're New Year's or otherwise, is to have small goals that are measurable, that you can say, I did that today. In other words, if you say, I'm going to write a book by the end of the year, and you can say, well, this is going to be a 365 page book, then you start, and every day you write a page. And if you write a page every day, writing one page is not that big of a deal. You know what I mean? It's like, and especially if you already have a big goal in mind, and you have the outline for the book. You know, in fact, you'll find that if you, once you get on that page, you'll write 10 pages if you know, because you'll get started. But then don't say, well, I'll take a 10-day break, you know, just keep writing the one page, and you'll probably get the book done before that and have time to write the front matter and the back matter. You know, great. Anyone else have an experience with New Year's resolutions? What, you know, do they work? Have they worked for you? Anybody else? I didn't think this would be such a controversial topic. Well, New Year's resolutions, while you're thinking about it, and New Year's resolutions, they can be a way for us, kind of like the people who were first doing it, to sort of reorganize and rethink our lives. Some people have another tradition of cleaning their house the day before New Year's, cleaning out all, or some people like me, it would take me a week before, but they start off cleaning so that the first day of the year, they start off with a clean slate, or take that yearly bath on New Year's Eve. So you start out clean on New Year's Day. But it's kind of the same thing, a time to rethink and restart things in your life. So let's talk about some of the things we could resolve to do. What are some things we could resolve to do to make ourselves, make better lives for ourselves, even if it's not on New Year's? Lee?
I think one of the things when you do that, it's kind of like when you make a plan, you have to set, I'm going to do it every third day, every week, whatever. When about you're going to do it, how you're going about it, do it. Look at what your end purpose, and really take some thought into it and not take it lightly. If you really, truly want to change something in your life purposely. And I felt this was very self-serving, and I questioned doing it. But I've also been able to help Spanish students learn English, and I'm learning Spanish as I'm working with them. So if you could do two things at once, if you could help others while helping yourself, I think that's a good goal. Makes sense to me anyway.
Anyone else?
I'm a Catholic, so I've had
Go ahead.
we give things up for Lent, and that tends to be my area, which will be coming up shortly. And one of the things one year was there was a guy that I worked with, and for Lent I gave up saying derogatory things about this guy who everybody in the newsroom resented because he was considered to be kind of a prima donna who got away with things that this was in a previous newsroom, Todd Williams. And yet he was a good guy. I mean, he was a likable guy, but he was a very good journalist. He won a lot of awards. He was what we would consider a trophy hunter in the business, while the rest of us are grinders. We're grinding out the stuff every day so that we can put out a paper, and he's hunting for trophies. Won a lot of them. And was one of the hardest, and I guess you could say that on New Year's resolution, but I know I couldn't make it a whole year. I didn't even make it a whole Lent. But those have been the kind of things I've tried to do, is to try to be kinder to somebody I don't want to be kind to, try to understand somebody that I can't seem to understand. And one of the things I used to do was to try and be more patient with people whose political beliefs differed from mine. And I've pretty much given that up. Because
Oh yeah, that's a hard one. That's
over
a
the
hard,
last 5 or 6 years, it's become, to me, virtually impossible to be understanding of some of the political beliefs that's coming out of this country. So
yeah, I think that idea has been pushed to its limit
Yeah.
And
The whole thing with
especially,
that-
especially for people, if we are doing something like trying to do critical thinking and trying to solve a problem and
Yeah.
trying to get input and balance, like, well, what do you think? And what do you think? And you want to actually have a conversation with people that you want some feedback from them and to say, okay, well, test my idea. Here's my idea. Test, let me know what you think. What is your opposing position? And they just give you emotional vomit. It's
Yeah.
hard really to, it's like, well, what do you say? You're not, okay, you have an idea in your head, but you're not transmitting that idea in a way that anybody can understand it but you. So that's not a thing, because, and as long as, anyway, that's a whole other discussion,
Wow.
but I can see how that could be problematic. But mentioning that you're a Catholic brought to mind Romans 15. And that's not a sermon that people preach often, but I think Romans 15 is the guy saying, for that which I do, I allow not. For what I would, that I do not. But what I hate, that I do. And this was one of the disciples, and he was saying, look, the things I want to do, I don't do. And the things I don't want to do, I find myself doing all the time. And then he even says, like, if he does, the King James Version is always a little bit awkward to read because those guys spoke different English before. But basically he said, look, if my body wants to do this thing, I don't want to do it. But somehow I find myself doing it. So that's not really a sin because I don't want to do it. It's not that I will to do it. It's just that I find myself doing it. So that's not really a sin. And I thought, oh, that's different.
Yeah.
That's one of the sermons I never heard. But to me, it points to that it's not new that people have, they will resolve to do one thing. They want to do one thing, but life just kind of deals them cards that they end up doing something they didn't want to do,
Yeah, and I mean, I'm thinking about some things that people said here, like break stuff up into like manageable pieces and set little goals and stuff. But what if your goal is of a certain nature that you cannot do that? Like right now, I have this thing. I've been invited to West Virginia to be able to do the exit there, and like that's one of those things that you cannot break down. It's just either you go or not, or you don't. With the added complications that if I do decide to take up on this offer, I will have to do something I really don't want to, or they won't let me in. So,
Well, those are the kind of decisions that are made, I think, in relative to what you're saying. The big decision is to go. The little decisions is how do you reconcile in yourself what you want to do, who you're going to be with, and those are, to me, those are the
yeah.
the
Yeah,
decisions.
and the whole idea of, I mean, sorry, this might be off topic or whatever, but this has been on my mind for a while. And somebody brought up tolerance with different political beliefs. And I think that's getting harder because when you're in a position that you're actually hurt for your political beliefs, and decisions based on those. Like for example, when I see a sign on a store that you cannot come in, we will not serve you because of a decision that you made, I'm like, wait a minute, what? Like,
Yeah. Well, those people are making those kind of individual decisions too. Anybody else have a resolution that that you've made, or have a comment on how you handle New Year's resolutions? Anybody else? Todd?
Yeah, well, I was just gonna say one of the things we had talked about earlier, I mean, particularly with that stat that you put up there about February, by February 8th, only 8% are still around. One thing that I really try to do, I mean, because it is something, I don't know how much, I mean, it is maybe easier to break it down, and you do have to put some thought into it. But the last couple of years, like I said, when I've started kind of come back to this whole idea, it's something that I roll up to kind of in November and December. And I think, what kind of like, yeah, what do I need to get done? What should I do? What would be good? And part of that is not measuring your success like in January. And for one of the things I really try to roll up to it in that January, I kind of am still like, well, maybe this will work or that won't work. It's kind of still testing what I can do. And so I don't feel like, oh, the pressure is on. I think that's one of the tough things about resolutions. No matter what time of year you make it or what time in your life you make it, if you say, oh my gosh, it hasn't worked in this 3 weeks or 4 weeks. And that comes down to, again, the smaller things kind of like, yeah, I might have, and if you fail at it, I'm like, well, maybe there's something, maybe I'm doing that wrong. Maybe it should be something else that helps me get to this bigger thing. And I think that's kind of one of the things that as people and more in this kind of, not instant gratification, but all society, we are taught kind of to measure like constant. Everything has become like a constant thing. Like we have apps that will constantly track this and stuff that will remind us, oh, every, this. But if you kind of, make it more like experimental, like how could I get there? And, if you fail in the big one, it's never as big a deal as long as you're kind of pointed in the right direction and you make it more experimental. So a lot of times I don't really get rolling. The last 3 years that I've actually done this, I haven't really got rolling until somewhere in mid-February because I'm still messing around, trying to figure stuff out. So, seeing how it does work and if it doesn't and what might be comfortable. Maybe I don't, there's parts of it I don't like, and that certainly has happened. So I think that's one of the things we just, I think one of the things to like make sure I'm on the right track. It's like, well, yeah, kind of. Or maybe you just picked a bad track, or maybe you picked a track that you can't get to right now and you might have to try some other stuff. Part of it is just, not just being, and this is goes to what Kevin says, a lot of them, I think a lot more early on about how it affects other people. And then once I kind of find a track comfortable with, something that I can do that I know is working for me, but I can tell that it's okay for others. So like if I choose not to eat red meat and all my family eats red meat, well, then I got some things I got to work out, and I got to figure out how that's going to work. And I am not going to be like, if I go to something and there's only red meat to eat and I end up eating red meat, it's not like I have a horrible failure. I just have to say, I probably have to think about that a little, how I'm going to handle that situation in the future where it doesn't offend others and I can get through whatever. Or I just go ahead and do it and, really stick to it other ways. So I think part of that is not to measure ourselves so harshly, the same way we would hope that we would, others wouldn't harshly measure us, kind of treat us like we'd want to be treated, treat ourselves like we'd want others to treat us.
That's a nice turn on it.
That's a good one, actually, because it reminds me of something about working out. I have this issue with it that when I was 18, I didn't get into the military, and at that point, my brain just said, okay, then there's no point in trying to work out. There's no point in trying to get stronger, and there's no point in even caring for my body because, hey, I'm not gonna get in no matter what. That's what they told me anyway. And then I found out that if I can attach like an auxiliary purpose to it, if I'm not just doing the movement for the sake of movement, but doing something else with it. Like, for example, going out in nature, or doing a job for a neighbor, like chopping wood or something. If there's like a secondary purpose to it, I can do it. But if there's just, working out for the sake of working out, that doesn't work, because my brain is like, hey, you're not going to get in. It's not going to work. It's pointless.
Yeah, you brought up some very interesting points, and Todd, I want to go back to something you kind of alluded to also, I think, unless I misread you, that is that sometimes you make a resolution and you get to doing that resolution, and then you realize, well, maybe I really don't want to do that. But before you actually tried to do it, it was just kind of an idea in your mind, or I don't want to do it to that extent, like the red meat thing. You might think, I'm never eating, no red meat will ever touch my lips again, but then you realize, oh, well, maybe there is an exception to that. And then if I make an exception to that, am I going against my resolution? Or should I just turn to eating only beef now, or just drinking the blood packs? There's all kinds of intermediary steps. So what do others think about how you measure? Speaking of measuring, and that's an important point that you also made, Todd. How do you measure whether or not you have abandoned your resolution?
Well, in my resolution to not speak ill of a coworker in a newsroom, I measured it by how many times I failed a week. Because I did every week. Yeah, and I think this was Lent and not a New Year, but extended time. I think by the end of that Lent, and again by the next Lent, because I was still working on it a year later, I think I had dramatically cut back the number of times in a day that I trash talked this particular to his face and to others.
Yeah. I count that as a win, Kevin.
I count it as a win.
It's like, don't let perfect be the enemy of good. It's like, okay, I used to trash talk him 100 times a day, and now it's only 99 and a half.
Yes, way down.
Way down. Yeah. Anyone else has a way of how do you measure your
I have a difficult time just saying a New Year's resolution. I think a total, and I'm going to kind of give my opinion here, but I truly think that is how you live your life. I don't do it because it's the first of the year. And I only did that my one resolutions because I was reading in the paper of people who made resolutions, and that was one of them. I thought, oh, that sounds like a good idea. But having said that, I'm thinking that could be part of our each and every personality, because I was born with a very curious mind. I wanted to explore everything. I wanted to do so many things. I don't know, it's been my whole life. And so sometimes that doesn't last a whole year. But I think it's how we grow in life is when we attack something that we don't necessarily like, or maybe it's something we do, and it's amazing all of the obstacles that can come up and how you deal with those. You're still learning. And so I think I'm going to say I'm making New Year's resolutions my whole life, but not during January.
You take a break. You take a break in January. You're tired of resolutions.
I have difficult putting it in a box.
There you go. You make some excellent points, Lee. It's like, okay, why wait till January 1st? to get started. Once you've decided to do it, just do it. And as you, how they say in the hospital, PRN, as needed. It's like when you see that, I shouldn't do that anymore, or I should do this, or I should do that to this person, just start.
Or if somebody said you should do that, or you shouldn't do that, that goes, okay, I'll just do the opposite.
Yeah. 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 Okay. Anyone else have an experience? Doesn't have to be unique. I was thinking a unique experience, but it doesn't need to be that. Any experience with New Year's resolutions or resolutions, as Lee put it, you don't have to wait till New Year's, but it can be seen as a kind of a pivot point in some parts of your life. Anybody else have experience with creating pivot points?
Well, as Lee says, it can become habit forming to change. So beyond the Lent, beyond the New Year, I made a resolution once that I was going to stop using the F-bomb, which I used fairly liberally. And I had great success for several months. And then I went fly fishing in the wind. And that was the end of anybody that's ever tried to fly fish in the wind will tell you that's a great way to end resolutions, to not use the F-bomb.
Yeah.
But I one of the very serious about a resolution that I'd made just about every year, back to the original point, of trying to be more understanding to people whose political beliefs differ from mine.
Yes.
And the problem that I have now with that, and I've been fairly successful doing that over the years as part of my job as a journalist, you have to do that anyway when you're going to write about things. But there was at least a basis of fact that we could begin with. There was at least a recognition of truth that we could begin with. That's gone. There is no truth. There is no grounding in fact anymore. So I don't know how you can try to understand someone who won't begin with the fundamental principles of fact in your discussion. We can debate whether or not trickle-down theory actually does work in trickling down.
Yeah.
But we can't argue if we don't acknowledge that there are certain numbers and certain truths and certain realities in our world that are just factual. So I don't know how you go anywhere from there in the world we live in now.
Well, to your point, that's one of the things that we fail to do when we even talking about critical thinking or something like that. We don't deal with the fundamentals of why do we do this anyway? Why do we do critical thinking? People don't understand that. They don't understand the idea of the mutual space. I don't know that people ever discuss the importance of the mutual space and creating the mutual mind, that where action happens between social animals is that there has to be some, even with ants, they have to have a mutual mind in order to accomplish something. That kind of discussion doesn't happen. So people now they think, oh, whatever I think, that's as real as I need to be. I don't really need to do anything more, But that doesn't have to do directly with the New Year's resolution. But again, to your point, you make a resolution, but then you come into contact with hard facts like you can't have a discussion with people, even though you want to have a discussion about their political views. They will say their political views and then turn around and deny that they just said that that's what they said. Even if you have a tape recording, you play the tape recording, they'll say, that's not me. So what do you do with that? So then maybe you have to abandon your resolution.
I've sort of given up for the time being, trying to have conversations with people. And in some cases, people I used to have conversations with. Dramatically different views on the issues, but an understanding of the issues. And now they start with the election was stolen. There was widespread fraud everywhere. And these machines that, you know, came out of Venezuela and the moon and the planet Jupiter and alien DNA, and
Yeah,
I've given up.
yeah. Now, I saw them come over the edge of the flat earth. You know? So,
Yeah, and some of these, not all of these people are stupid people. Some of them are well-educated, smart people who have just decided to dive full body into this illusion.
right. Interesting. Anyone else have an experience with New Year's resolutions and how you handle them? Anyone else? Well, Stacy says that one of the things she does is put a reminder on her calendar in order to help her to remember a resolution that she made. And I think resolutions are easily forgettable, especially if you have a whole bunch of them. And I remember a time when people had like a list, you know, it's like, looked like a telephone book. And you said, well, how will you ever remember all of those anyway? But how do you keep track of the resolutions? And how do you, as well as how do you measure if you're keeping up with them? Anyone?
Well, I think one thing is you have to, when you set your resolution, you have to think of it in that framework. You know, a lot of times big goals don't have that kind of, you know, measurement. But if you set smaller goals, like Kevin saying, you know, by how many times, if you're thinking ultimate zero, but if you said, oh, well, right now it's like 50 and if I can cut it in half, you can measure that. Zero is a tough measurement. I think a lot of times it's just setting something that you'd say, well, you know, I'll start here, sort of something that can be measured. You know, it just can't be like, I'm going to be kinder to people and say, well, how would I do that? You know, and like I said, this is why I don't know if New Year's resolutions is in a lot of ways, Lee's absolutely right, is that New Year's resolutions isn't something that you just come up with on New Year, you know, like December 30th or
What?
yeah, you know, yeah, exactly. Something that you should be rolling around in your head a little and say, well, I'd like to do this. How would I do that? You know, and then you got to figure out what's measurable, because big goals are, you know, are often not directly measurable, but little goals that would get you there often are. And so maybe that's where you start, is just what are the measurable things I could do? Even if it's really simple stuff, it will help you keep your mind on it. You could fail every day, but if your mind is on it and you're moving in that direction, and in some ways that's a success to some level.
Mhm. Well, to your point about kindness, that's one of the things you can do is you can, if you say, I'm going to be a kinder person, you can say, I'm going to find 5 kind things to do every day. Just a random act of kindness. It's not like, you know, something, give grandma a present. You're going to do that anyway. Just how, you know, something to someone, or be kind to someone I don't know every day. Do something completely surprised. Like one of the things I've done, depending on how I feel about it and how my budget allows, is to put like $5 in small envelopes. And then when if I drive up to a place and there's a person standing outside begging, like on a freeway or something, I can just roll down the window and get in my glove compartment, roll down the window, give them that thing, and then I can take off. You know, then it's all set. I don't have to dig through my wallet or anything like that to find it. In which case I was just driving to keep myself alive, you know, instead of stopping on the freeway. But if I already have it planned that I'm going to do that, then I just have that envelope, it's locked and loaded, you know, so when I roll up, I can just hand them that envelope. They'll figure it out, you know, So you can set something like that up so that you can just do random acts of kindness, as an example. Anyone else has an experience with resolutions? How about resolutions not to do something? Negative resolutions, you know?
I was about to say, I have been feeling like a scofflaw through most of this conversation because I haven't jumped on the resolution bandwagon. And most of the things that I do that maybe would fit into that are so self-centered at this point in my life. But my resolutions, as I'll call them for today, are kind of seasonal because my life is different in the wintertime than it is in the summertime. Wintertime, I love to be inside. I don't have to go out in the cold and go to work anymore. So I plan to do the creative things that I can do, and I check myself on that. And the other major thing is that I have to be diligent about maintaining my health. And that does make me feel pretty self-centered, but it's a positive thing in that there are a couple things I measure every day. I don't have stiff, hard rules, but I look at how are things going. I feel, how am I feeling? And that helps me to maintain myself so that I can be independent and not have to give up the things I like to do. So that's kind of what I resolve, and it works pretty well for me. A little better when I don't have pie in the house. So, and then in the summer, it's to go out and travel and do the painting I like to do. And I've had to govern that for my own well-being because I tend to put too much on my calendar, and then I get single-minded about it, and I go against all good sense and do more than I really can. And then it takes me longer to recover. So, you know, it's a battle, but most of this seems so selfish. I do have things that I do, like acts of kindness and such too. But anyway, that's I don't feel quite so scofflawish as I thought I did. So. Thank you.
Betty, I don't think that's selfish, because if you take care of your body, you're helping your family and they don't have to worry about you. So that really is not selfish in my idea. So hats off to you for
Well, thanks, Lee. I think you and I we're soul sisters on all of this, I think, because I feel that very strongly too. If I can't be in good health myself, how can I be of any use to anyone else?
As you get on with life, one of the goals, and it was a goal, improve body and mind. And, you know, there's a lot in each one and you're always improving. So hats off.
Well, you know, the other thing that, you know, in terms of resolutions, you can do things more moderately. You know, maybe you're not going to say, I'm not going to do this at all. Don't go from one extreme to another. And it makes it more manageable in terms, and doable and completable. And for example, you can say, I'm going to leave the disco before 2.
Now that's a bridge too far.
That's a good start to, you know, I'm not going to be the last one to leave the disco. You know, I'll see to make sure there's somebody else. And that's, you know, that's an incremental improvement. You know?
It's all about balance, even at the disco.
It's all about balance. There you go. Exactly. Anyone else have an experience with resolutions and turning points and making changes in their lives?
Hey, Lawrence. I will say,
Hey.
I think I've only ever made one resolution in my life. I don't know that I knew it was a resolution at the time, but 8 years ago, I guess I jumped on the New Year's Eve bandwagon and said that year I was going to quit smoking. And then I guess like I felt like I failed at it because January came and went, and February came and went, but I tried and tried, but I couldn't do it. And I think I thought that I was trying to do it for somebody else, like other people wanted me to do that, but I didn't want to. But then in April, one morning I woke up, I said, that's it, tomorrow's the day. And I haven't smoked since. So, but I think
Wow.
part of making those
Hallelujah.
resolutions is it has to be something that you want for yourself, not something that you think other people want you to do, or even that you think you should do. You really have to want that yourself, I think, in order to make a New Year's resolution stick and work. And I think it's true, like you all said, like Todd said, like, don't judge yourself in January because January, we're still trying to get it together. And we don't know what, January is just like, the stepping stone to get into the year. So don't judge yourself in January or February. Maybe it'll take till April. But I really do believe that it's not going to work unless you truly believe that you want it for yourself, not for anybody else.
Even when sometimes, your point is very well taken. And even sometimes when you want it for yourself, there's this other part of you that won't let you have it. It's like you could say, I'm, in my case, for example, if I buy a cherry pie, I can say, I really should only eat a quarter of this pie. But mysteriously, about 2 hours later, even though I'm the only one here, the whole pie is gone. But I've made an internal decision not to eat the whole pie, but it's gone, and I think that is something we will always struggle with, because even though we like to think we have one mind, we don't. We have other minds. There are other desires and pressures inside us that push away the ability to make cognitive, rational decisions and stick to them. And I think when we make resolutions, we should be aware that there are these other internal pressures, and maybe we have to find ways to get over them. It's kind of like someone proposed with credit card spending that you freeze it in a block of ice that will take, some awful lot of chipping or time to melt the block of ice that will give you a cooling down period, or if you get angry, you have anger management issues, you find little tricks to help you to do that, so I don't know, that is the struggle, I think, of making resolution. And one more thing about when you are that internal cop, that person that sort of manages all that, there's the other part of you just want to be a different person and visualizing yourself as a different person. Like when I was struggle with stopping smoking, that's what I had to do, is to visualize myself as not the guy with the cigarette. I wasn't the guy anymore that had the cigarette, right? So whenever I picked up a cigarette, I realized that's not me, but everyone has to find their own kind of tricks that they do to maintain that resolution. Any other insights before we're down to our last 5 minutes or so? Any other insights on pivot points, changing points in our lives, things that we can do? How do we improve ourselves, the self-improvement part of our lives?
Okay, I've hogged the conversation, but I want to say one more thing, just about what you just said. As listening to this, you understand that, this is like, these are markers and things that you can measure yourself on, but realistically, kind of like what Lee said is, it's kind of, kind of a practicum for purposeful living in a way. A reason, you're looking for things they can improve on. And perhaps one of the things that you should always take away if you go through this practice is that even as you fail, you become more aware of yourself and maybe why you fail, or maybe what your actual, kind of wants are in that case. And so, part of it is being okay with that. And that's not an easy lesson in anything we do. That's the big lesson for purposeful living, is that there are times when you'll fail, and then you should look at that as a chance, perhaps. And it's tough, but a chance to, kind of assess yourself and say, oh, okay, I now know this that I didn't know before I undertook that. And you had mentioned that earlier. And I think that's an important thing in whatever, whatever kind of resolute way we approach something. Failure isn't a bad thing if you treat it as discovery. And, so when people just kind of turn off on resolutions, it's like, I get it, but it can be, it's kind of how you can approach it sometimes. That's why I probably never did it when I was younger, and I do it now because I've become much more comfortable with failure.
Well, right to your very well put point, it's also a way to learn how you succeed, to practice succeeding and recognize what you did that worked, and you can build on that.
Well said, Betty.
Helping to know yourself helps you to understand and help others. And you have to be, how do I say, healthy yourself. You're not going to get a nurse going to be taking care of you and she's very sick. That's kind of an analogy. But I think it's important that we truly know ourselves and know that we have power to change ourselves. The power comes within you. But yes, many times you need others to help. I'm not saying you can do it alone, but it has to start with you.
Well, this has been a very interesting conversation, and I hope that we can resolve to come back next week and all the weeks after that. And because we have lots more conversations to have. And if you have ideas that you want, things that you would like to talk about, issues that you feel that, we talk all around that issue, but how about talking about that issue? With some reservations, we can talk about lots of things here. And what I would like to see this activity become more of is people sharing their ideas, because none of us have all the solutions. I certainly know that I don't, because I keep running into things that don't work for me all the time, and things that I thought would work. But I think all of us together will always be smarter than any one of us. And so when we come together and we throw out some ideas, they don't have to be right. They can just be the catalyst for going down a certain thought path, to exploring a certain venue. That's valuable. We don't have to step up to the plate and bat 1,000 and come out with a super answer. But if we engage, we find some new possibilities for answers. And I think that is what we can do. Well, we'll see you all, hopefully, next week. Same time, same station.